friends, and welcome back to another Technology Tuesday episode of Moment of Music with Miss Sloan. Today we're going to go in a little different direction. So far for Technology Tuesday, I've been showing you different websites and apps that you can use to create music at home. Today, instead of showing you a website, I'm going to talk to you about some podcasts that you can listen to at home to learn about music. So what is a podcast? Podcasts are basically radio talk shows that have been pre-recorded so you can listen to them anytime you'd like. They are free to listen and they come in almost every variety you can imagine. Some of them are sponsored by actual radio stations, some of them are sponsored by other companies, some are done just by regular people at home. You can find a podcast about just about anything you'd want to learn about. There are also lots and lots of podcasts out there for kids. Some of them that we're going to talk about today are specifically all about music, and others just have certain episodes about music. Now, usually when Miles and I listen to a podcast, it's when we're walking outside. I planned on filming this video outside today, but it is cold and cloudy. So, we're going to switch the background and pretend that it's a nice, beautiful day outside while we talk about these cool music podcasts. Another beautiful thing about technology, I can be anywhere I want to be right here in my dining room. So, I'm going to pop in my AirPods and we are going to talk about our first podcast. The first podcast we're going to talk about is called Noodle Loaf. Noodle Loaf is designed specifically for children by an elementary music teacher. He says that these episodes are best suited for 3 to 8-year-olds, but I think anyone can listen. Noodle Loaf, he does this all by himself. It is not put on by a radio station, is interactive. It's songs and games that kids can follow along with while they listen. It's pretty cool. It's kind of silly, but it's fun. I hope you check it out. The next podcast we're going to talk about, let me read it off here so I make sure I tell you the right thing, is called Marvelous Musical Podcast. And it is sponsored by Classic FM and it is hosted by someone hilarious named David Williams. There are only 10 episodes of this podcast, but I loved it so much that my Thursday episode of Moment of Music with Miss Sloan this week is about something I learned on this podcast. It's all about music history, different composers and things that they did. It is hilarious. It is suited for all ages. Parents and kids will love it, and I really encourage you to listen to it. It was great. The last two podcasts we're going to talk about are not specifically about music, but they do have episodes about music. The first one we're going to talk about is called But Why? How many of you ask your parents that question all the time? But Why is sponsored by Vermont Public Radio, and it's good for kids of all ages. The way it works, kids send in questions, and then the podcast answers the questions. Things like, why do people like different types of music? That's a big question. I listened to that episode this morning while I was walking Miles, and it was very informative. It was nice to listen to. They talked to experts. It was really cool, and they answer some really silly questions too, so you'll really enjoy it. The last podcast we're going to talk about is called Brains On. This is a science podcast for kids, and it follows the same structure as the last one we talked about. It answers questions, but they're all specifically science questions, like music, and it talks about what kinds of music there are. And then from 8-bit to orchestras, how does video game music work? How cool is that? And it talks about the different ways that video game music affects the game. There are lots and lots of podcasts available to you. Do not just start clicking and listening. Make sure it is something that is appropriate for children. I've listened to tons of podcasts since we've been out for quarantine, and it's one of my favorite things to do. On this gloomy day, I hope you take some time to check out one of these cool podcasts for kids. Remember, friends, that I miss you, that I think about you all the time, and I'm ready to share music with you in the classroom again soon. Happy Tuesday! Hey friends, so as I just finished editing this video, I realized I forgot to tell you something important. If you want to listen to these podcasts, you can ask Alexa to play them for you. Echo, play But Why podcast for kids.
Here's But Why, a podcast for curious kids from Apple Podcasts. Playing the latest episode, But Why Lie? Bats and Beavers.
I hope you check it out.